Welcome, everybody, to What the Tech. I am Andrew Zarian, and I'm joined by the man, the myth, the legend, Paul Thurrott. How you doing, Paul?
I am not Andrew Zarian.
I am not Andrew Zarian, and I am not a man, but possibly a myth or a legend.
Not sure. I mean, any of those or whatever, but hello.
We're just starting 13 minutes late for the live viewers today because Paul and I was rewiring the studio, and Paul has animals in his audio line, so some chipmunk type animal, right?
Yes.
Or did I get the stories mixed?
Well, it could be the same animals. They need a new home.
But this is the show where Paul and I complain about Android. No, we discuss tech, but we don't run down tech news for the new viewers. Today we're going to do something interesting. We're going to play What If I Ran Company X. So I will pick a company, and Paul will discuss how they would run that company, and vice versa. I think it should be interesting with all the RIM news. I wonder who's going to get RIM. And the audience could decide who goes first, actually. I'll do that with the audience. And if you are in the chat room, you could go to our website, or if you're not, actually, if you're watching on a number of our providers, our content partners, you can go to gfqlive.tv and join the chat room. If you're in the chat room, hit menu and change nickname. You can change your nickname to whatever you want. RIM recently, actually 2 days ago, Sunday night, late Sunday night, they announced that they are getting rid of their co-CEOs. And they're picking one person to run the company. Surprise. Very interesting. Paul, good move or bad move before we go into the game? Do you think this is what RIM needed? I mean, obviously, my opinion is that yes. I don't think having two CEOs is a good idea in any situation, but what do you think?
So on the surface, it seems like the right idea, but actually, the more you learn about this guy and the more you listen to what he's saying, he intends to continue down the exact path they've already been on.
The RIM 10-year plan.
Yeah, so RIM needs a new plan, not just a new figurehead. So it reminds me of the current Russian president who is basically a figurehead for the previous and next Russian president, and it's kind of like that. I just don't see this as the dramatic change that they needed. So
yeah, I mean, he was pretty much saying the same exact thing, but one interesting thing that he did say is that giving RIM out to other manufacturers, so seeing BlackBerry OS on a Samsung device, for example, is not out of the question, which I found very interesting for him to say that.
Yeah.
I mean, he alluded to it. He
also said he would listen to other companies' offers, whether it was for technology or some combination of companies, even though he didn't expect any of that stuff to bear fruit. But to me, that was just lip service. I mean, we need to see something happen. I mean, when when HP just had their management shakeup and Meg Whitman came in, one of the first things that they did was say, we're going to have this strategic look at the company, and we're going to find out what we're doing and what we should be doing, and we're going to do all the right things. And I thought that was very responsible, and it seemed like on the outside it was done properly. And then RIM is in far worse shakes than HP, and their response was, no, mission accomplished.
Yeah.
This is what we needed to do, change the change the CEOs. I don't think it's enough. So
you brought up HP, and I will go first. I will pick a company for you, and guess what? I pick HP. What would you do if you had HP? If you were the CEO of HP and everything you wanted could happen, what would you do?
Honestly, HBO needs a mulligan because the last year was such a disaster. And one of the things, I understand why they got rid of Mark Hurd, but honestly, they were better off with that guy at the helm. And that's a shame. And they're never going to get him back, and they're never going to get that back. But I look at what they're doing right now, and I agree with the current consensus there that their PC business is too core to everything that they do, and that it feeds into all of the other stuff that they do. That I think that's smart. I actually think HP is in decent shape right now. I don't see any major problems there. I mean, I can pick out little things. I would like their personal systems group or whoever's responsible for the laptops to not just copy Apple designs and come up with things that are truly.
But I mean, almost every manufacturer is doing that at this point. They're copying Apple's design as far as the Ultrabooks go.
Yeah,
which I think it's the first year that they're really pushing this, so we're going to see an evolution of it, and we're going to get away from it. But everybody is going there.
Yeah, so we're going to see an HP MacBook Air, I'm sure, this year and all that stuff. But honestly, of the companies on your list, HP is right near the top, I would say, in a sense that it's in good shape. And that's only because they've made a management change and those people that were put in charge seem to have done the right thing. So actually, I wouldn't make too many changes right now. I think they're on a good path, given, the unfortunate nature of what happened.
How about WebOS? What would you do with WebOS?
So right now they have sort of an open stewardship of WebOS, where they've open sourced it or are in the process of doing so, and they're going to allow the community to look at the source code and modify the source code and bring things back into the source tree and all that kind of stuff. I think that's all great. I would love to see, and you, I think, are more positive about this than I am, but I would love to see them aggressively license that OS to third parties, much like Google does with Android, and possibly muddle the waters further with yet another mobile OS that, maybe from a consumer standpoint, we don't necessarily need. I've always felt that WebOS was a great mobile operating system, that the technical stuff was just right, that the UI was beautiful, that the capabilities were all there. It just never took off in the market. So there's a sort of a romantic part of me, if you will, that would love to see WebOS succeed. But I think they're doing the right thing with that.
Okay. Now your turn. What do you pick for me? And again, if the viewers have any questions for Paul or me when we start talking about the company, throw them in the chat room, because I'm monitoring the chat and I could actually relay them back to Paul. What company do you choose for me, Paul?
So I'm going to give you Apple.
Okay. First thing I would do is eliminate the Air brand.
Wow.
Which I think they're going to do. I would get rid of Air, because to me and many people...
The product or the brand?
The brand. The product would go over to every other MacBook and MacBook Pro. I would kind of just have the MacBook. I wouldn't have all the other ones. Like, I would have a MacBook, which is an Air, and I would have a MacBook Pro, which is an Air. I would totally eliminate the Air. The first thing I would do. I'm sure it's going to happen, but they kind of have to get away from branding it as this. I think that if overall, I think that would benefit if the entire Mac line was super thin like this.
Desktops too?
Desktops too. I would go with this ultra slim form factor for everything.
It's like an Air Mini.
Well, it's not very difficult. I mean, if you think about what they're doing for the desktop, which is their iMac, they can't slim that down.
They can't.
They can't?
No, I'm sorry. They can or they
can't? They can. They can make it slimmer, and people would buy it because that's what people do. Apple fans do. They buy anything that Apple throws at them, no matter how crappy it is. By the way, I am on a MacBook. I have a MacBook Pro here, so I'm allowed to say that. I'm one of these people. By the way, Paul, the best message I got, why are you talking about Microsoft? Why do you have a Mac if you're talking about Microsoft? One of the best comments I've ever gotten.
Classic.
And I said, I don't know. Just so you could ask me that question. That's why I'm on a Mac.
People's heads are in the wrong place.
So as far as that's what I would do.
Yep.
The iPhone, I know a lot of rumors that, they might stick with two phones. I don't think they should do that. Like, I think it's a big problem for them to have the 3G on the market. I would, the next iPhone would be the iPhone 5, whatever they're going to call it, would be that iPhone that everybody wants. There's not much you could really do with Apple. They don't have too many products that they're screwing up. Except for Apple TV. And one thing I would not have them do is put out an actual TV. That is the biggest mistake they can make. As far as the Apple TV goes, the actual Apple TV would be smarter and would actually... I don't know. What do you think? Do you have an Apple TV, Paul?
Yeah,
I don't know
I use it all the time.
What do you think they should do with the Apple TV? I really don't know what they could really do.
I actually really like it. I mean, I think the only issue is it's not built into anything, so it's another thing, you know. But honestly, I like it a lot. The simplicity stuff that some people seem to have a problem with, where they took away the ability to have stuff on the device for the most part, I really have no problem with. This is all kind of future-leaning, cloud-based stuff. We rent movies on it all the time. We access Netflix through it. It does the captioning stuff right now, which I really like. I access my iTunes-based, media collections and so forth.
You know what I would do, Paul? They should learn from Roku and actually have just like an HDMI thumb drive for the Apple TV rather than an actual TV.
Right, that would be so Apple.
Yeah, and you make it ultra slim and you make it like this aluminum style and
it could plug into the HDMI port on your TV. You wouldn't even know it was there.
Yeah, attach a Febreze to it. You know, I don't know.
Every time you rent a movie, your room smells
Your
nice.
room smells like the movie. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a popcorn Febreze.
I don't know with Apple. It really. I mean, as far as the tablets go, I don't know. I really can't think of anything that they're doing really wrong. I don't know, Paul. What do you think? I mean, that's a good question for you too. What would you do with Apple?
Nothing. They're doing great.
Except set it on
agree.
fire.
What's that?
Except set it on fire.
Set it on fire. No, I don't hate Apple.
No, you do like Apple.
Like people think. I like their new CEO a lot, and he was a guy I had looked at earlier. I think that their next CEO is probably going to be Scott Forstall, also a great choice. So I think their leadership succession is in place, and I think it's the right one. Product-wise, I agree with everything you just said. I mean, the Air should be it. Everything should be Air-shaped and sized. I want to see a Mac Mini Air. I want to see a very thin Mac or Air-looking iMac. But these are all essentially evolutions and good ideas, and I'm sure they will do things just like that. I agree with you also that they should not get into the TV business. That's the opposite of their current model, and I don't quite get it.
Someone in our chat room said, price drop or not on the iPad. I would not drop the price. I would keep the price where it is.
They're going to have to drop the price.
You think they're going to? I
because
do
it's
not
not
think
like
they're going to do
Android tablets of similar capabilities are $100 less expensive. They're going to be 150, 200 plus.
You think the evolution of this device within the next, let's say, 18 months, you're going to see, let's say, the fourth generation? I don't think they're going to do a price drop now, but do you think like the fourth or fifth generation they're gonna slash $100? They might offer you a crappier version. I mean, one thing that I could possibly see them doing.
That's Apple's new upgrade plan, right? So there's two ways that Apple lowers prices. One is that they literally lower prices, and the other one is that they introduce new models. You know, they do this with the iPhone right now, and there's no reason they can't do it with the iPad. There are a lot of expectations that an iPad 3 will be on the market next to an iPad 2, which will be lower price now. You know, that'd be one way to do it.
Yeah.
But I really think they need to lower prices across the board. The way I would do that, and Apple is probably right not doing this, it's just my personal preference, is what I would like to see is a 7 and a 10-inch iPad, and I would like to see the 7-inch one be priced between the iPod Touch and the current iPad.
What I could see them doing, Paul, is saying, you know what, this is the iPad Cloud. And everything is on cloud storage. And all you do, you know, there's no physical hard drive in this thing. There's no SSD. There's nothing. It's just on the cloud, and it's, you know, you're getting unlimited storage on the cloud, and you're going to pay $399.
So a lot of that is there now. I mean, iCloud is sort of like that, although
But Apple's way of doing things is not gradually having their customer base go to it because it's great, but they kind of force you in the environment.
Yeah.
And that's the only way that they'll have it. I don't think their cloud service is good at all. I mean, I'll be honest. I don't use any of it on my iPod Touch, and my wife on her iPhone does not like it at all.
Really?
She doesn't use it. It's almost like it's not integrated well enough for me.
Well, you know, there are little things that are nice. I mean, for example, my son recently, we blew away his, the iPod Touch that he uses, and I was able to, instead of syncing everything through the PC, which is always a huge pain, and also you have to sync it through the same PC. It's kind of a weird limitation that, say, the Zune and Windows Phone stuff didn't have. So I used to have to do, you know, his music collection, the apps that he wanted. That would have to occur through the PC. And this time I actually blew it. I mean, I did it almost disconnectedly, if you will, not with a computer. And I handed it to him, and I said, for now, I'm going to leave on the capability for you to download new apps. Just go to the store, go to previous purchases, go down the list, and hit the little cloud icon next to every one that you want, because everything we've ever purchased is now available on that device. And that alone is a huge capability. But he did it with the music as well, because, you know, he only likes a small subset of the music that we own. And so, you know, he went down the list, and he said, yeah, I want him. And, you know, it took a little while to download, but he was able to do it by himself. And then I went in after he was done, and I turned on all the parental control stuff, you know, so we can't do in-app purchases and all the stupid stuff that kids would do if you didn't watch them. But, you know, that stuff's, that's a big deal. I mean, so it's getting there. I mean, iCloud's not perfect. I would like it to stream, not
it's much better than Mobile Me. I mean, let's give them some credit.
And it does a lot more. And there's the ability now, and you can see this on the Apple TV too, where it really makes sense, to go back and stream TV shows that you purchase, not movies yet, although, you know, we have to think that's coming. So They'll get it there. I
Um,
like it. I like it a lot.
do you think they're going to actually? And you know what? Let me ask the chat room this. I want to involve the chat room. Do you guys think that Apple's actually going to release an Apple television? I mean, an actual TV? I don't. I think that it was totally misquoted or misunderstood or in whatever way it was said in the
Well,
book.
he said he cracked it.
He cracked
Apple
it.
cracked it, but that could mean anything.
I'm telling you what it is. It's a remote control.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, it could be something as simple as we have reached an agreement with the major cable providers to blah, 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 offer our software and services on their boxes or something.
I think what he's going to
That
do,
would be
yeah, I think what he's going to do, he's going to do exactly what Google did with integrating into the TV, and that's his way of cracking it. Yeah. And they're going to have a lot of deals with the providers and the channels and the movie companies, and you're going to see some wacky, functioning remote control. That's going to be his crack because he hated the remote control, and he says it in the book multiple times. Jobs.
The Apple one.
No, he hates remote controls.
Oh, remote controls. Period.
Yeah.
See, I have to say the one thing I don't like about the Apple TV is the remote control. It's really lousy.
Yeah.
And I get Apple's fixation on super simplicity and the lack of buttons and how that's always easier, but it's not always easier. I mean, sometimes it's nice to have some buttons. An Apple TV remote has what works as a home button, something I wish that was on the iPhone, for example.
Yeah, the iRemote.
Yeah.
That'll be the next device they put out, which total will be $800.
But Apple, let's be clear. I mean, of all the companies on your list,
yeah,
Apple is clearly
doing the best. I mean, Apple is single-handedly doing the best, and
it's kind of Apple and everyone else.
Yeah, I've never been one of those people that hates on the companies. I don't like certain products. But I won't dislike a company. I won't dislike the people that use a product unless I use it and I hated it. That's why I'm in all environments. I mean, 90% of what I do is on a Windows machine, but if I do want to surf the web and I do want to check my mail, I use my MacBook. And I'm fine with that. I'm okay with that. I have a company for you, Paul. Since you gave me Apple, I'm going to go right back at you with Microsoft.
Yeah. So I figured you were going to do that.
I wanted to put something ridiculous in here, a company, and I couldn't think of anything that would be like
Ralph Lauren.
Yeah. Like, what would you do with Polo?
Here's how Paul would fix Old Navy. Actually, I do have some ideas for Old Navy. But anyway.
By the way, you're talking to a Gap guy right here.
Yeah.
8 years, I was a Gap merchandiser. I was a manager at the Gap.
Okay.
One of the best jobs I ever had, actually. Very Apple-ish.
You probably, I mean, I won't be able to tell this story in a way that would make you appreciate this, but over the years at Microsoft keynotes, those events are always very boring for the most part. And the most interesting events they ever had were when they brought in someone from the outside. And sometimes they were from clothing places, like a guy from Ralph Lauren actually came on stage during some Microsoft keynote and was very interesting. And I think it's just because from our perspective, in the tech industry, you're looking up at the stage and blah, 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 product demo, blah, 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 technology, blah, blah, blah. And then this guy came out and he's like, look, I use this stuff in the real world. And his world was very interesting because we didn't know much about it.
Yeah.
But anyway, big deal, right? So Microsoft, yeah. So this is probably going to get me in a lot of trouble.
Okay.
But I've sort of hinted at some of this stuff in the past, and of course I write articles, how Microsoft can fix Microsoft, and so I've been talking about this stuff and writing about it. But I do think it's time for a change in leadership at Microsoft. Unfortunately, I like Steve Ballmer a lot. I just don't think he's right for this company. I would personally put Steven Sinofsky in charge, but more from a vision perspective, kind of a thing. Microsoft is very, and I would say too much, focused on Windows as like the only product that matters. And one of the things that this most recent financial quarter has driven home is that Windows is not the biggest piece of the pie anymore. They're not even in the top two. It used to be Windows and Office. And then for a long time, it was Office and then Windows. This past quarter, it was Office and then Windows Server and then Windows. And I think as the world evolves, Windows is going to be part of it, but not the biggest part of it. The more I look into the technical aspects of this stuff, the more I look into how you develop for these different systems, I actually feel that what Microsoft did with Windows Phone, for example, is something very special. Mm-hmm. And I actually do think that they're going to take Windows Phone and get rid of it and replace it with Windows 8. And the more I think about that, the more I think that's a mistake. That there is something beautiful and pure to Windows Phone not just, I don't mean the device itself or the OS, but rather the way it's made and the way that programmers access its facilities to create their own applications and services. I would really like to see that continue, and I hope that they do continue that.
So you would keep Windows Phone as Windows Phone. You wouldn't merge the two. But I mean, if you look at what everybody else is doing, their tablets and their phones are the same exact device.
I still wouldn't do it.
Okay. What would you do with the Xbox?
Actually, that division is finally in really good shape. I mean, clearly they're working on some next generation console. It's not hard to imagine that this thing will be completely cloud connected and will be more connected to your Windows Live ID or your cloud-based identity than is even true today. So I think that thing is in good shape. I think that using Xbox as their consumer brand makes a lot of sense, even though I actually like Zune as a media brand, and that they should rally everything that they do for media and for entertainment around Xbox.
Now, do you think the Xbox, first of all, it's not going to be called the 720?
No, it's not. I've been told that explicitly multiple times from Microsoft.
Do you think they're going to go? Do you think they're going to go slimmer, like a smaller device, or are they going to be this powerhouse of a?
Yeah.
Because I could see them not going as this powerhouse device and just going as a smaller device and having a lot of the work done on the cloud.
I think it's going to be a hybrid device. I think there's going to be serious local computing power in addition to this cloud-based stuff. If you look at how OnLive does things, where they can deliver things from the data center and have a tiny device or just a software program on even a dumb terminal type of display or computer or whatever, certainly there can be aspects of that for the Xbox as well, the next Xbox.
So phones you would keep separate.
I would allow each of Microsoft's major brands to differentiate themselves in ways that may contradict the other parts of the company. Right now, Microsoft is too Windows focused. I think they need to unleash Office and let those people do what they want and make that stuff as good as it can be and let it run on as many platforms as is possible, even if that competes with what Microsoft is doing with Windows. I really think they need to unfetter the other parts of the company and not pump everything through a Windows filter, which is what they're doing right now. I think that would be the big strategic or kind of vision change I would make.
I put Skype on the list, and I know it's part of Microsoft. But what would you do with Skype since we're on Microsoft?
Well, honestly, there's not much I would change there other than that.
I mean, they have to create revenue. So what would you do for revenue?
I'm not sure they have to create revenue. I mean, this could be basically a supporting service. One of the reasons I use Microsoft Office is that Skype is integrated in. It's not maybe one of the top 5 reasons, but maybe it becomes one of the reasons. Skype can be an ingredient in everything that Microsoft does. So the basic Skype experience is something like what you and I are doing, running an application, but the more seamless experiences are going to occur through Skype's technological integration into all of its products where it makes sense, as part of a core part of Windows Phone, as a core part of Windows, as a core part of all those Office applications where, they already have all these facilities for presence. And one of the things you can do in addition to calling or emailing a contact is Skype calling them and doing a video conference with them or whatever all those capabilities are. So I would integrate Skype very deeply across the board. But I don't actually think it needs to make money per se. I'm actually very surprised that Skype is its own division. I actually don't think that makes any sense at all. I think Skype should be rolled into entertainment and devices.
Okay. All right. So what do you choose for me?
All righty. I would say.
And if a company comes to mind, you could throw that in also.
I'm kind of curious about the. Well, let's use Amazon, because Amazon, I think, is misunderstood by people, and I don't think it's clear what they are today and where they're going.
Well, that's the exact thing. I don't think they have a lot of direction as far as, I think they're doing a lot of everything to see what works.
Yeah.
I don't think they're doing a great, other than their store, of course. I don't think they're doing a great job with their Amazon Music store.
Right.
Let me go to Amazon right now, just so I can see. I don't necessarily think it's a good idea to have their video service on their Amazon webpage. Like the video and the MP3 and the cloud, I would split that. I would give them a different interface and a different look all around, because it's a lot of people don't understand like what that is, because the first thing you see unlimited video, and and it's pretty confusing. And then you have Prime Video. The branding is a little weird. I would get it if I was Amazon. I would become really serious about the video service, and I would become a major Netflix competitor. Right now, they are not. And one thing that they do, close, yeah. They're not even close. And one thing that they do that really can give them an advantage over everybody else is the fact that they have certain shows, TV shows, before they're on everything else. So let's say, I'm there right now. Let's say How I Met Your Mother, for example. They get the updated episodes constantly. They're constantly getting them as it's happening. So if they were if they could roll this out into the Amazon Prime membership or a membership that covers everything rather than you having to pay $1.99 or $2.99 like iTunes does, it would really give them an advantage over Netflix.
Yep.
I would rather have this than have Netflix. Again, the direction is a little weird with this because they're trying to be a monthly provider, a monthly service, plus have you pay for select shows. So it's not very clear. Their music store, I don't know if they have a future in music. I mean, their catalog is pretty good. Like, they have stuff that iTunes does not have.
Right.
But I don't know if this is going to survive the 18 million songs they have. But again, it's all cloud-based. And I don't know if a lot of people want to have everything off there.
Well, you know, the one big advantage that Amazon has over anyone else, actually, is that they offer content in a variety of formats, you know. So if you're looking for a movie and you're on Netflix, you know, Netflix either has it as something you can watch immediately or you can rent the DVD and then they'll ship it to you. Amazon has the capability to let you buy that thing as well. And it seems like that kind of integration is something they should be doing more across the board, that if you, you know, you're looking at a CD, they should be offering you the ability to buy it digitally and vice versa. That kind of stuff. I mean, they offer everything, you know, but their stuff is not available everywhere.
No,
you know?
It's not.
And it's strange because when you're on an Android device, unless you're on the Kindle Fire, you can't access Amazon's digital video offerings at all. The only thing you can get on an Android device, well, you can get Netflix obviously, but you can't really rent a movie other than through, say, the Android marketplace.
But again, it's very convoluted by how they present the videos. Like, they'll say, if you have a Prime account, it's free, and then you go and you try to watch something, and it's like $2.99. So you really don't know what you're getting yourself into until you're like clicking around. I think that's a big mistake on their behalf, and they could really take away market share from Netflix, considering all the turmoil right now.
Their Prime Video service, or whatever it's called, is so lackluster compared to Netflix. It's like what Netflix was 2 or 3 years ago, or whatever. There's just nothing there. I mean, that's the problem with it. Anytime I go through it, you're kind of like, no, and then that's it. You know, there's just nothing there.
I don't know if they really have a future. I mean, the Kindle Fire is great, but I don't know if they have a future in the next 3 years with this device, considering all these inexpensive netbooks are coming out. They're going to have to really offer something special other than a skinned Android device.
Well, I think it's just really a front end for their services. I think that's the point of it.
Yeah, what they're going to have to do is really drop the price.
Yeah, I mean, eventually you should get this free with a Prime subscription or whatever. I mean, you know, sign up for 2 years of Prime and get a free Kindle Fire. And by the way, that's another differentiator. That is something that Amazon could do that Samsung can't do, and that none of the other people making Android devices can do. So I do think they have a future in that. My problem with Amazon is they're all over the map. You know, they have a retail store, obviously a cloud-based retail store. They have all these online services for consumers. They have the Kindle Fire business and the Kindle business, hardware. And then they have these weird enterprise services for hosted cloud services and hosted storage services. It's almost like I don't even know how to explain what they are. You used to be able to say, well, they're an online retailer, and they are, but they do all this other stuff too.
Yeah, I'm in their cloud player right now.
Yeah.
And it's not done well. I mean, it's not done well at all. And it's almost like they're trying to present digital things, like digital merchandise, as physical merchandise.
And it's just music. You know, they have this cloud storage. They have no good interface for putting or accessing documents up in there, or video files, or photographs. Google has a great service of photos, and now they have a service for music. Amazon has a service for music, and they have sort of general storage, but they have no real good way to access it, and they certainly have nothing for photos.
And none of them do, which is funny. Both of them have music stores, and none of them do podcasts, which I find really funny.
Yeah,
I'm curious on why. I mean, there's no money in that. There's no money, but you are bringing people to your environment.
Well, that's a bullet point, right? Podcasts. It's kind of like the photo service I just mentioned. There's no direct benefit to Amazon to offer you a nice way to put photos up in their cloud and then access them online through slideshows or whatever. There's no benefit to them for that, no direct benefit. So podcasts are kind of the same thing. On the Apple ecosystem, you have all this stuff, and podcasts are one of those things that you get through the Apple stuff. Podcasts are one of those things you kind of get through Zune and the Microsoft stuff that's not totally complete, but there's a lot of it there. And then once you branch out further than that, it's just not there. You're right. There's no way to subscribe to a podcast from the Google or the Amazon Cloud Player. I agree that there should be, because that gets people using your stuff, and once your stuff is there, you tend to stay there, don't you?
Hey, what would you do with Zune?
I would personally, I would keep it. I actually think that Zune is a good brand. It's got a good logo. I would keep it as Microsoft's media brand. Now they're not doing that, so as a plan B, I think what they're doing is a good idea, because they're doing Xbox. Xbox is the brand. So,
but then you don't see them integrating it in Windows 8 and having it there already?
I do, and I think they're going to call it Xbox.
A real? Huh.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay.
Well, they'll just, they could call it music, right?
Yeah,
and videos.
Music and videos.
But when you go to the store, it's like Xbox Marketplace or something. I mean, maybe on Windows, it's just they use these generic names. You go, and you can see this on the phone. I mean, there's one marketplace really, but when you go to it from music, it's the music marketplace, because that's what you're looking at. When you go to it, there's a videos marketplace. They almost don't need a brand. It's just, part of the integrated whole. I mean, maybe they do that on Windows too. It would make some sense.
All right, Paul, I have a company for you. I'm going to give you a hard one.
Okay.
I'm going to give you Dell.
Yeah. Oh, man. So Dell is a tough one, because I used to really like Dell a lot. And I can't say that I dislike Dell, but every time I go and look at their PCs, I'm not impressed, and I'm not excited about them, and I just don't get it. Dell is more than a PC maker, of course. I mean, they're in many ways, like a lot of these enterprise companies, they're kind of evolving into an enterprise services company. Mm-hmm. That's probably fairly lucrative. I actually don't know, and I don't personally care. I don't really care about that.
Isn't that what happens to all of them? I mean, they start losing market share for the consumer, and then they turn to enterprise.
Well, yeah, because what you want is, selling a PC to an individual and then having to support that is a high volume, low margin business. And for companies of a certain size, that's not necessarily attractive. Selling to enterprises is a low volume, high margin business that is not a one-time sale, but is rather an ongoing subscription type of service, if you will, because they're basically paying a subscription service on support or, ongoing upgrades and so forth. Microsoft wants everything to be part of this model as well. They don't like selling a thing and then it goes off into the other. They want you paying regularly, and you get free upgrades, and so that's nice. There's a benefit to the user. But Dell, I still buy Dell equipment. My desktop PCs are mostly Dells, have mostly been Dells throughout the years. The first PC I ever bought from any PC maker was a Dell. The one I'm using right now is a Dell. Mm-hmm. The printers we use are Dells. My wife's laptop is a Dell, but I refuse to use a Dell.
Why do you go with Dell?
Because they've always been solid. They always work well. They never break. I've always had good results. They've been good. I like Dell equipment in ways that I don't really like HP equipment. I can't put my finger on why that would be so.
I mean, at this point, to me, they've all become the same thing. I mean, before there was
Well,
there was a big. I mean, let's go into the early 2000s before when Compaq was still in the mix. Like there was a big difference between a Compaq computer and an HP, and a Dell, and a Gateway. I mean, there was a
Yeah,
difference,
I
and they all
guess.
had their pros and cons.
Yeah.
Now it seems like to me, they've all kind of become this one thing.
Well, okay. So I would say yeah, sure, that's true. Generally speaking, I think in the laptop world that there are ThinkPads and then there were everything else. So all of the mobile computers I purchased in the past couple of years have been ThinkPads. I will buy at least 2 ThinkPads this year. I love ThinkPads. There is just nothing like them. I sit down at a Dell or an HP and you type on those chiclet keyboards and it's
No, you're absolutely right. There's my wife uses a ThinkPad, and I think it's like the R something 20 or I forgot what it is.
Yep.
So it's right here across from me, and it's like a heavy duty machine. But the thing
Yeah.
is solid. I mean, you're typing on this thing; it feels unbelievable.
Right. But even their new thin light machines.
Even the new thin ones have the same sturdy feel. I mean, as far as hardware goes, I do consider them probably the best PC laptop.
Yeah,
as far as hardware
it's not
goes.
even close.
Yeah.
It's literally Lenovo and everything else. So, but but how do you fix Dell? So, I mean, I think that they need to stop being so generic and do some innovative designs of their own. They had that Adamo brand for a little while. The style of those machines actually kind of filtered down to some of their Vostro products and some of their even their Inspiron type machines and so forth, XPSs and all that kind of stuff. But there's too much. They make too many different products. They have different lines for consumers. They've got small businesses. They've got the enterprise products. The Latitude line. They've got workstations. This is too much.
Too big.
It's kind of like Steve Jobs did when he came back to Apple. The first thing you do is you look at all the junk that they're making. And I don't remember what the number was for Apple, but there are like 73 different computers.
But Paul, they also sell, I mean, Xboxes and PlayStations and Wiis. I mean, this is the most amazing part of this. They're selling.
People are there so we can sell other stuff, and that's
just for add-ons.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm looking at their best sellers. Let me see. Best
It's not
selling
interesting
desktop.
to me. But their best-selling computers, I bet, are these awful, boring $400 pieces of plastic.
Yeah, $349. Inspiron
just,
570. Inspiron 620. $449. Yeah, everything is $600 and under.
I just think they need to simplify. I think they really need to revamp the mobile stuff in particular. And I'm just talking about computers because, again, honestly, the printers are solid. I think that business is good. The servers are great. I buy workstation class machines from them as well that I use as servers, and small business servers are all good. I mean, there's stuff that makes sense. It's like when Microsoft expands from personal computing to work group computing to server computing, there's a progression to that. They go to cloud computing next. It makes sense. Dell, too, being in part of the same market, the same business, has also expanded in those same ways. It all makes sense. That's fine. But I just think they need to simplify their...
They had an advantage 2 years ago when they released the Duo that we both hated.
Yeah.
But imagine if that device actually worked the way it was supposed to. It was supposed to be this flip type thing, and then
But that product tells you everything you need to know about Dell.
Yeah.
I have to think at a lot of companies, Apple in particular, but it's like those goofy Toshiba commercials where the guy imagines all the bad stuff that's going to happen if they don't have Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Car goes flying off the cliff, and he's like, "No, we're going to put Wi-Fi in it." The problem with the Inspiron Duo is somebody at Dell said, "Yes, we're going to sell this piece of crap."
Yeah. And people will buy it.
And no one bought it. That was the thing. Like, somebody signed off on that.
No, they thought people would buy it. They're like,
I can't believe they actually thought that. It was an absolute disaster.
It was so
Dell,
bad.
I mean, I don't know.
I mean, you could see through the bezel. The most amazing part of this was that when you flipped it, actually when you didn't flip it and you were just using it as a laptop, you could see through the bezel because the gap was huge. It
was like a GM car from the 1970s.
It was a GM car from the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
Okay. Yeah. Nice fit and finish.
Yeah.
I just lousy.
I had a Grand Cherokee Limited. My first car. I got a 99 Jeep Grand Cherokee Limited. It was a good car too. Mm-hmm. But I actually ended up going to court because I sued him. It was a lemon.
Really?
And when I got the car, and I always compare it to this, I used this analogy once. When I got the car, I'm driving it off the lot. I'm 17 years old. I got this great car. I had a good job at the time. And I'm driving, and I'm hearing like this ticking, like almost like the ticking we're hearing in the audio. And that's why I might be having a flashback. And there's a metal rod just sticking out into the tire.
Huh.
And I ended up going back, and it was a whole bunch of problems. But, I mean, there was one issue where the hood, one side of the hood, this is off the lot, the gap was huge. And the other side, there was no gap. The alignment was off on the hood on a brand new car.
Yep.
And that just explained everything to me.
Yeah, it was total disrespect of the consumer over there. Yeah.
Well, Ford had the same problem. I mean, Ford has really cleaned up their act. But if you go to the early...
No, they all did. They all did.
If you go to, like, before the crash... So let's say 2005. I went to go buy that new Mustang that they put out, and every car on the lot had overspray on the bumpers, and there were paint runs. Every single Mustang on that lot had overspray on the bumpers.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, this is why American cars aren't selling.
Well, yeah. So the good news is they fixed it, but what
They fixed it, and now they got a lot
needs
better.
Someone like, what's that guy's name? Kevin Mullally or whatever his name is, whoever's running Ford now.
But you know,
They need someone like that.
they do need something like that. But the problem is the tech, I guess the computer manufacturers need a bust in a certain way to kind of fix up their act, because they're offering everything cheap, and we're kind of responsible for this because we want the cheapest one. People really don't care to spend $50 more to have something better.
But so, by the way, just talking about the PC market now, Dell and HP are in this market what the American car makers were to the car market, right?
Sure.
That they're being upstaged now by, in this case, Asian rivals, companies like Asus and Acer and Samsung and whoever else, these companies that come in with more innovative computers, smaller companies, faster moving, more aggressive, this kind of thing. There are different ways you can respond to this competition. One is you can curl up into a ball and cry and hope that they go away and then you go out of business. But the other one is you can actually respond to it, and we'll see what Dell and HP do. I mean, this year I think will be very interesting for both companies. But the PC computing world, the market, I would say, for these companies is going to be very different in a few years. Just like the devices themselves are going to be very different than what we were using just.
I mean, let's not forget HP is the company that made that all-in-one that was catching on fire. The monitor, it would start overheating and smoking.
Yep.
And this thing went to market.
Sure.
They know they have these issues. All right, Paul, your turn. What do you pick?
Well, I think I'm going to pick Samsung.
All right. Well, Samsung is doing pretty well too, and they're very aggressive at this point. Let me just go to Samsung's website so I could see what they're doing.
Remember that these guys, they make phones, they make tablets, they also make computers, and the computers are actually pretty nice.
Okay, so the first thing I'm going to go to the tablets. Oh, the TVs I'll go to after the tablet. As far as tablets go, I would eliminate all of them. I would go to one tablet, and that would be it. I would go with a 10-inch tablet and possibly create a 7-inch tablet. You only have 2 tablets rather than the 15 or so. We counted this once. I think it was like 10 tablets on the market. Let me see, actually. They have 15 of them at this point. It's a stupid CES banner. They didn't update their site. So I would have 2 tablets, a 7-inch and a 10-inch. And that's all you do.
Yeah.
As far as that goes. For the phones, I think they're doing a pretty decent job with the phones. I don't think they have many. Their flagship right now is the Galaxy S.
Or the Nexus.
Or the Nexus, which they don't talk about. But the Galaxy Nest seems to be the one that they're behind. I think they're doing a decent job with the phones. They really can't do anything different at this point. They're probably the number one phone manufacturer at this point. They've surpassed HTC, I read a while ago. And I'm not surprised. Laptops go, they're when did we start seeing the big Samsung laptops? The Series 9 was the first mainstream one, right?
Yeah, I think the bigger ones had been around for a couple of years before that, but the Samsung Series 9 was the first one that really, I think took hold.
I mean, Samsung has the advantage to possibly, eliminate all those old notebooks that they have and really go with these lightweight MacBook Air style
and by the
laptops. and
Unlike a
only
lot
do
of these
that.
Air ripoffs, that Series 9 it does not look like a
It
MacBook
does
Air. It
not.
actually
No.
has its own style, and
Yeah.
I think that's great.
Well, the problem is it's very pricey. That's the biggest problem with this because you're looking at a 13-inch Series 9 for $2,000. It's pretty pricey when you're trying to be competitive. So I would actually they are doing that now. They are only producing those. That's it. It's all these MacBook Air styles. It's the Ultrabooks. They only have 3 of them. So I guess they are doing well with that. Televisions, I would the smart TV seems like they're going to be doing those smart TVs this year. I would cut back on TVs also. I think a lot of these companies have the idea, like a Samsung has the idea to put out as much as they can and try to saturate the market with their products when they really don't need to. If you put out 2 or 3 products of that category, you can pretty much saturate the market with really solid products at a competitive price rather than producing 15 TVs that year. If you look at what Samsung is doing with TVs, they have like 9 or 10 TVs that come out. That come out.
Right.
They do have the advantage. What do you think of the smart TVs, Paul? Do you think this is going to help sell? I mean, we kind of made fun of this a little bit last week,
Right.
but in hindsight, I think they might have a serious advantage when it comes to selling TVs this year because they have all these apps and they have all this integration, and
Yeah,
it's running and they're
it's
running good
something
CPUs.
Yeah, they could build it into all of their devices, right? I mean, people who buy Samsung TVs can get this, probably a Google TV type solution, but they could get it through the Blu-ray or DVD players. They could get it through the Samsung home theater systems too. I mean, they should integrate everything like that. I think that's smart.
Look at this. I'm looking at the TVs. They have 59-inch, 51-inch, another 59-inch, another 55-inch, and then they have another line with a 40-inch, 55. So they have, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. They have 17 TVs right now on the market.
Yeah, but I don't know enough about this market to say whether that's unusual or not.
I think they're all doing it, and I don't think it's right.
Yeah, it looks. Geez, you could spend $5,500 on one of these things if you wanted to. 65-inch.
Yeah, I guess you know what you could do? You could have a couple of the categories, but cut back. Why
Right.
not cut back? It seems like they are going all smart this year, which is good.
Yeah, that's definitely the way. Yeah,
So somebody brought up Sony in the chat room,
right.
and that is what I'm throwing to you. What would you do with Sony? Because Sony's an interesting beast. I mean, Sony was the king of electronic gadgets and devices for many, many years, and they just fell apart.
Sony used to be the only non-Apple brand that had an Apple-style kind of thing to
Yeah.
it. If you go to SonyStyle.com, they make nice-looking laptops that don't actually ever review very well. And obviously, they have other consumer electronic products of varying degrees of quality. They have regular TVs, they have Bravia TVs, they make cameras, they make.
Well, Sony was
Video
a brand.
cameras.
I mean, Sony was a brand that is the brand to get. People only bought Sony, but now people are not loyal to Sony. They lost that loyal following.
No, and because I kind of like this stuff, I will occasionally go and look at their laptops. And they're expensive, and they don't really differentiate very well. They also have too many of them, by the way. Too many series, too many models, too many things. Sony. I mean, they bet wrong on so many things. I mean, these are the guys that were pushing mini disc. They were pushing memory stick. They seem to have always backed the wrong technologies, typically their own kind of thing. I mean, I'm sure there's a bit of culture there that kind of contributes to this problem. The one thing I saw that they were doing that I think is kind of interesting, not that this saves the company, but they were using Android for their Walkman players. I think that's a fantastic idea.
I think that's excellent.
Yeah, very smart.
Yeah.
They make Android tablets now. Sony was a pioneer of the ebook reader space, although those machines have never sold well and never will. And of course, that has been usurped by Amazon and also by Barnes & Noble.
How about the PlayStation?
The PlayStation is actually a great piece of hardware. It was, I have to say, from kind of a strategy standpoint, their idea of this, look, we're going to go with truly next generation technology. It's going to be really expensive up front, but we have a 10-year plan where this thing's going to come down in cost and we're eventually going to make money on this thing. Actually made plenty of sense. I would say up until about a year ago, there was a very good chance that Sony was going to tie Microsoft for second place in this market with this generation of consoles. Now it seems like Microsoft has kind of pulled ahead and maybe will for the duration. But, they're not that far behind. honestly, from a technological standpoint, I think the PS3 is great.
Yeah, as far as where it stands with the hardware, but the biggest mistake they made, first of all, they do not have the innovation when it comes to the software like Microsoft has. That's something
Yeah,
that
no,
Microsoft will
I've never
always
liked.
have an advantage.
Sony was the first company to use a UI across a lot of their products. I don't know
Yeah.
what you call it, but that kind of thing where it waves across. It's not a good UI. It has a lot of similarities in some ways with what Microsoft does with their. This is the wrong term. I call it. I think of it as a crosshatch UI, but where the menus go up and down as well as left and right, and
Yeah.
it has some of the same usage scenarios there. But they used it on the PSP. They used it on their PS3. And I believe they use it on some of their TVs.
But you know what it is? I don't hate it. I've been in far worse UIs.
Yes.
On a device like that, where
Sure.
I don't really hate it. It's not an awful UI. It's not as good as Microsoft. I mean, when you compare it to the Xbox by far blows it away because it's actually this graphical interface that looks great and it's kind of fun to look at and play around with.
Yep.
Sony's big mistake was not really that, but it was the fact that they stood still. Since when did it come out? 2007 the device came out?
You're talking about the PlayStation?
PlayStation.
Yeah, 2006.
2006. They stood still for a good 4 years. They haven't done anything when it comes to media.
Yeah.
They really, I mean, they have Hulu and they have
Sure.
Netflix, but I mean, there's nothing else.
They're so lost.
They are.
They're lost.
Well, and somebody in our room actually, he said something pretty profound. His screen name is Pulse to the Wall, by the way.
Nice.
He said, all these companies need to calm down and reset a bit. Drop the clutter, focus, and release top-notch products every year. And that is the problem with these companies. I think that they just try to push things out, where they're not really pulling back and saying, you know what, we don't need this.
Sony should make, and probably does make, the best TVs, right? But that should be the industry should accept this, that, every year, whatever models come out, Sony's will always be the best. I don't think that that's the case. They have a chance with televisions, with cameras, with speakers and stereos, Blu-ray players, to be the best across the board.
No,
I mean,
they
they
can.
make all this stuff. This is an opportunity for synergy, and this is something they're not doing.
No.
I think that adopting Android across the product lines would make a lot of sense and would make sense from an interoperability standpoint.
I mean, Sony has a 10-year lifespan. I mean, that's what they had said. The PlayStation 3 was going to be around for 10 years. And that's great because they made a very strong machine. I mean, it's a very powerful system, the console. But you can't really use it for anything other than playing games. I mean, again, I'm going to get the emails and people can say, well, what do you mean? I watch Hulu on there all the time. Yes, but it's the environment isn't really pushing that.
Yep.
While the
And
Xbox
that's something
is
they
kind
should be doing for PS4 or whatever they're going to call it, which is what Microsoft's doing with it.
I have a PlayStation 3 sitting in my living room, Paul. My wife got it for me the like that Christmas that it came out. I've turned it on about 3 times. And
right. So
it was to watch Batman, it was to watch Spider-Man, and it was to play a game that I played for about 14
James
minutes.
Bond Blu-ray movie.
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the Blu-ray aspect of it was great because it's
nice,
very affordable at the time, and you kind of would pay a little more to get that, and that's what a lot of people
Sony
bought it
has
for.
so many clear problems. You've ever seen like a Sony remote? It's like the Sony remote on the Google TV, which is ridiculous. It's a grid of 127 buttons.
Yeah.
Or the Blu-ray remote that you get for the PlayStation 3, same thing, giant rectangular slab, 127 buttons. They really just don't. They don't. It's funny that they have nice looking machines. They don't have good design. I don't know how else to say it. I mean, they're beautiful to look at, but then when you actually have to use them, they're terrible.
A couple show notes, Paul. I did want to get to this, and I think this is a good segue into that. Starting next week, Hover.com will be advertising with What the Tech.
Mm-hmm.
It's all because of Paul, by the way.
Okay.
They sent me an email. They go, "Oh, you're the guy that does a show with Paul, right?"
That's how I know you.
Yeah, the guy with the hair and the eyebrows.
The guy with the hair. Yeah.
Hey, you're the guy that looks like Groucho Marx.
You're the musician that.
Yeah,
I mean,
the magician.
Yeah.
Paul. Hey, Paul. You do a show with that magician, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I got? Do you watch Game of Thrones?
No. I don't. We don't have any of the pay channels, so I'm gonna.
I got an email from somebody saying I look like the villain Khal Drogo.
Okay.
And I look at him, and he looks like Dave Navarro on steroids. So apparently, I look like a fat Dave Navarro. That's what somebody's telling me at this point.
What's the character's name?
Khal Drogo, KH.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, you don't look like him.
I don't know. I don't know what it is.
That's funny though.
I look like an angry dark Viking.
That's the guy who was Conan.
Is he?
I think so.
I
Yeah.
don't know. So Hover.com will be joining us starting next week. I don't know exactly what the promo code is. I haven't read the copy or anything, but it's always fun. And Stitcher.com will be advertising with us too, so that's fun also.
Cool.
So Paul's moving up in this world, I guess, in the podcasting world, and I'm just grabbing onto his coat,
Right.
just hanging on.
Or vice versa.
Yeah. I think it's your turn, right? You went. You did
I just
yours.
did Sony.
Okay, so you gotta
I
pick.
will, for you, pick... let me think. Which one would be more difficult? How about Netflix?
Okay, and how much longer can you go today? Just so I know what to go to next.
Yeah. Not too much longer.
Okay.
Actually.
Okay. So Netflix, and then you know what we'll do? Maybe we do two more, and we'll speed it up a little bit.
Okay.
With Netflix, what I would do, I would really start considering. Thanks for putting that X, Paul.
I got to do something. It's my contribution.
For people who don't know, we share the note in Google Docs, and Paul, I've been Xing all the stuff we've been talking, and Paul just wrote Sony and put an X, so he contributed.
I'm not completely useless. I also bolded Amazon.
With Netflix, what I would do, I would actually start looking at what OnLive is doing and possibly buy them out. I think they have to look at a different strategy other than the video streaming business. They're doing a great job at that currently, but they have this negative stigma with them, and they've kind of pissed a lot of people off. Their DVD business will come to an end within the next 3 years, in my opinion. So you have to kind of look at how else are you going to create revenue other than the streaming device, and I think a service like OnLive would be a great direction for them to go, and they could have a different market. You know, they're going to attract this gaming market, and they have the means to do it. I think that if they teamed up with something like that, would be great. A unified UI across all devices would be another thing that I really want to see, because it's still not that unified. I know they have this very similar look, but on my Xbox and on my Google TV, it's a totally different environment. So I kind of would want to standardize the environment amongst all the devices. As far as deals go, again, and I said this for Amazon, it would be phenomenal if they could lock in these deals with the TV networks to kind of have these TV shows on there for an extra cost. I mean, you could have like a Netflix premium membership where if you pay them $14.95 or whatever, I'm just throwing a number, you could get How I Met Your Mother, a week after it came out, instead of having to wait for the season to be over and the DVD to go on instant play or whatever it is. The other issue that I've noticed, and I hate the fact that it does this, if I go to Netflix.com and I do to watch live stuff and I put it in queue, some of the stuff on the Netflix website is not listed on my Xbox or my Google TV.
Oh, jeez.
And it baffles me on why it's like that. Like, it's still missing. Like, it was a documentary I wanted to see, and it wasn't listed in Netflix on my Google TV. I'm not too sure about Xbox. So I had to manually go onto Netflix website and put it in my queue so I could watch it. The other thing would be, why don't you offer whatever DVD you have, offer that on Instant Play?
Yeah.
That's the thing that baffles me. Like, I wanted to watch Apocalypse Now, one of my favorite movies, and I couldn't because it's not on Instant Play.
You know what kills me about Netflix, just as a service, because I use it all the time? They don't offer previews.
No, I would love previews, yeah.
That doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, why wouldn't you? It might be a relic of the past when most of their movies were crap, B-level stuff. But, today they have a lot of A-list movies and TV shows in there. I mean, how about some previews?
Yeah, that is interesting. Why wouldn't they do that?
That's very strange.
I would love to see reviews, like people writing reviews about it, like a comment section. That would be something that I would like to see.
Just integrate with Rotten Tomatoes, like Apple's done on iTunes.
I watched a movie, and I don't know why I did this. The movie had like 2 stars, and that's why I watched it. It was a conspiracy theory on Tupac Shakur being alive.
Oh, yeah.
And it was this woman that sat there, and I was wondering how this got on Netflix because it was so bad. And the woman for about 45 minutes discussed how it's a big conspiracy and the U.S. government is hiding him.
hiding him.
Yeah.
With Elvis and
Because he knew something. And God, I
Colonel
cannot
Sanders.
find that documentary,
He
but I
knew
wish
something.
he knew something. Tupac knew something.
See, I don't see that.
I don't know. Something. The other thing I would like to see. What was that? The other thing I would like to see is better web content integration. I'm a fan of, and I don't stand anywhere in their politics, but Vice magazine, which is a New York-based magazine, they have these great online documentaries at VBS.TV, and they go into like, let's say Congo, and they do a documentary in Congo. The guy Shane Smith, he was on CNN. He went into North Korea. He snuck in and did a documentary. They have these great documentaries, and they had a part of them on there, and it was very limited, and you didn't have access to the other ones. I would love to see Netflix integrate more web content in their service. Make it an all-in-one spot rather than having to go to another place to get it.
They might be heading there. They're going to sponsor their first Netflix-specific TV show.
Arrested Development's coming back. I'm really excited.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll see what happens with that. I mean, that's where I would go with them. Paul, I'm going to throw you one. I'm going to throw Google at you.
I was wondering if we were going to get by Google.
Now with Google, I don't know if I want to go into like the web search stuff.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Google as a consumer provider.
Yeah, we don't have to talk about that because that thing's running great. Interestingly, their new for the past year, co-founder CEO Larry Page. I actually think he's doing the right thing. One of the problems I always had with Google was that they had too many. They would just start up new services every day, and these things would sit out there, and sometimes they would just flounder.
Wave,
and,
Buzz.
Yeah, they just had too much stuff. It was like throwing spaghetti against the wall. Very easy complaint to make. That they were just doing too much. I think it was Steve Jobs who actually talked to him as sort of a mentor when he was taking over the job as CEO, and he said, you got to focus on the stuff that makes the most sense to your business. And so, over the past 9 months or so, Google has repeatedly started cutting services, including some which are very well liked, like Picnic, for example. They just got rid of, or are in the process of getting rid of, because it's not really core, to what they're doing. I think that's very smart. So in many ways, I think Google is in fine shape. I mean, obviously they need to address the mobile stuff. I think one of the concerns about the most recent quarter they had was that mobile advertising just doesn't generate the same kind of revenues as does desktop, PC advertising. So that's something they need.
No, and I don't think it's gonna be generating that kind of revenue for a very long time.
Yeah. So they need to find a way around that, right? Because you can't just make less money. They need to to figure that out. But I think strategically, one of the smartest things they did was to get into the OS business and take on Microsoft on its own fronts. And I think they've been very successful for the most part, mostly with individuals and small businesses. But I think that stuff, they need to combine the Android and Chromebook stuff and just make one OS around that. And I think they need to do the right thing with Android and really consolidate that and lock it down in ways that resemble what Microsoft is doing with Windows Phone and take more control of that ecosystem so that this fragmentation problem, which is very real, doesn't get worse, which is going to. But Android is obviously in a good place from a volume standpoint.
One thing I would love to see them do is, and you're kind of right, I think, and we've said they had this beta mentality when it comes to the consumer. They feel that they could, and Google TV was a prime example of how they have failed to capture the consumer market. You cannot release a program that does not work. I mean, it's one thing to put out a piece of software and call it a beta and have the people be patient with it, but when you actually have pieces of hardware that people are spending money on, not downloading, I don't think they want to deal with that. And we have seen it run havoc this year. I mean, we saw Google TV. We've seen Android be a beta. I don't care what anybody says. It's a piece of beta. Paul would say it's a piece of something else, but
it's okay.
It's gotten better. I mean, this is the first, in my opinion, this is the first version of Android that I could say it feels complete. It's not, everything is kind of streamlined, and it's not this like,
it feels cohesive, I guess.
Yeah, it's cohesive. I would like to see.
I still can't get excited about it, but
I like it. I mean, I've totally. And if you listen back over the summer before I got this device, I was pretty awful with Google, and I was really disappointed what they were doing, and I was actually considering getting an iPhone.
Yep.
And when I picked this up, I said to myself, you know what? They seem to have something here, and there's a lot of things still missing. Like, I don't like the fact that the apps and the widgets are together. I don't. It just bothers me.
You mean in the
Ice Cream Sandwich,
full app view or whatever?
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. For whatever it's worth, that left to right navigational model instead of doing the up down scrolling is the right way. It's one of the.
It doesn't work for me.
I really like it. This is a recommendation I had made to Microsoft for Windows Phone that they need to move in that model. And if you look at the way Windows 8 works, it's horizontal, not vertical scrolling. I think that's the right model personally. But
I think they've done a good job with the contacts list. I think, which is, by the way, very Windows Phone-ish. I mean, if you were to show me this and not tell me what UI this is, I would say this is probably a Windows Phone or a next generation. I mean, it feels like a Windows Phone when you looking at the, it's this kind of shifty left to right thing. But as far as their products go, they bought that what was the company they bought? The phone company, like the VoIP
Motorola
company.
Mobility?
No, not Motorola. The VoIP company.
You mean more recently?
Years ago, they bought it.
I'm sorry.
It was like a
Skype.
Skype. It was like a Skype company.
Not Grand Central.
Gizmo 5. Yeah.
Gizmo 5, okay.
They still have not they have not integrated Grand Central, which is their Google Voice now, and that.
Yeah.
They did not integrate that at all. They pretty much killed it, and it's a web-based chat service, which is not what people want. There's a lot of things that are still missing with them. And a phone application. I mean, they don't. I'm sorry, not a phone. I don't know. I'm reading 10 things at the same time. They don't have a photo app. That's solid. I know they've integrated in Google Plus.
Yep.
But it's still not. People don't want that brand, in my opinion. I don't think a lot of people think Google Plus for pictures.
No, they don't. It's actually kind of convoluted because their actual photo service is still Picasa Web,
and it's dead though. They killed it.
Did they?
Yeah. The desktop is still there, but it's being integrated into Google Plus.
Yeah, so I mean, Google Plus is like another way to view those photos. I mean, basically, your photos are in Google storage, and then you have one kind of view you can get through the Picasa web service, and then you have a different looking view that you can get through Google Plus. But I mean, ultimately, I'm not a big fan of the one service, Google Plus being everything to everybody, but.
Let me ask you, Paul, do you think that they need a desktop client when it comes to services like the pictures and when it comes to music, like how iTunes has and how Zune has their program?
No, I think they can do most of that through the cloud, actually.
Because I'm curious if that might be the reason why, iTunes is so successful compared to what Google's been able to do and what Amazon, because it's kind of there.
This stuff is temporary. I mean, most people are going to access this stuff through mobile applications and on the PC through the cloud. I don't think it's really necessary for most people.
What do you think about Android? What would you do with Android?
Well, I would lock it down further. I would make more stringent requirements for people that want to license it. I don't think they necessarily have to start charging for it, but I mean, I think they should indemnify their partners against patent litigation, and take the high road on that and just do it. Maybe they will after they own Motorola's patents. Maybe that's what they're waiting for. But right now, entering into a license agreement with Google for Android is kind of like a deal with the devil because you're just waiting to be sued by Microsoft and Apple and all these other companies. So I think they need to really think about that and getting rid of the questions that currently exist around licensing Android. So, but I mean, the way they handled Honeycomb, which is a very clear basis for what they did with Ice Cream Sandwich, I think was okay because they're evolving the OS in a nice way. But I just think they need to lock it down where it's too Wild West.
Their marketplace is the perfect example of being too Wild West. And they have come a long way, but I still feel that it's half-assed.
The store.
They've kind of made it prettier, but it's still missing a lot of key things.
It's a pretty front end.
For nothing. You know what's interesting to me? And I wonder, and I don't want to insult Android users. I am an Android user, but I sometimes feel that they just download garbage. The number 2 app right now, the paid app, is SPB Shell 3D. Do you remember this existed for Windows Mobile?
What did?
SPB Shell.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that is the number 2 most downloaded paid app currently on Android. Why would you want to put this piece of junk on here? And it's $15.
Some people like to tweak around with stuff like that.
I mean, this is just awful. And that's the problem. And I'm looking here. I'm like, maybe it's the user. Where is My Water is the most downloaded app.
Where is My Water?
Where's My Water? You're an alligator searching for water.
I've never even heard of that.
Disney put it out, actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jeez.
I love seeing, and this is another issue. Their number 3 and number 4 most downloaded app are for rooted phones.
Yeah.
I mean, that's also a problem. So there is a lot of issues here, especially with this marketplace. They need to get a lot more closed when it comes to accepting programs.
Yeah. I think they need to lock that down. I don't think they ever will.
No.
But,
it's funny how we're screaming less open.
It just needs to be less open.
Yeah.
I know it's crazy, but
All right, let's do one more and then we'll wrap it up, Paul.
okay.
What do you think?
Let's see what's left. Google's done. I think we have to touch on RIM.
Okay, we'll go to RIM. By the way, I did the podcast last Tuesday. Simple Mobile Review podcast, which I had a lot of fun. It was actually really, really fun, and the discussions were really solid. They are RIM fans, though, so I had to pull back a little bit. I didn't want to really say what I wanted to say, but with RIM, I hope now with the new leadership they kind of go in this direction, and I said this on their show. I would only have 2 phones. I would have one physical keyboard phone.
Yep.
And I would have their flagship smart touch phone like this, whatever it is. I wouldn't have the 15 different bolds and the curves and everything else. And I would actually just sell that phone. And if Verizon didn't want to pick it up, I would go to AT&T just like what everybody else is doing. As far as the tablet goes, I would have 1 tablet and 2 phones. And that would be it. The BlackBerry Messenger, I would license it out to other phones. I wouldn't license out the operating system. I would license out the BlackBerry Messenger. The reason why I would do that is to kind of attract former BlackBerry users back to the brand if they put out a solid phone. Other than that, I can't really see them doing much. I mean, the reason why people stuck with them is because they had good hardware at one point. They had better hardware than most people, and now everybody has good hardware. Their software was solid, but pretty much everybody's putting out decent software now. So what's keeping people loyal to them? Nothing really. Except if you're tied in at the enterprise level, which a lot of people are not.
Yeah, there used to be a thing about RIM. It was kind of like Sony, where people who got these things through work grew to love them and wanted them and, needed them around all the time. And that has largely been destroyed by the Apple and to a lesser degree Android stuff where people now turn to those devices.
But you don't think they should license the software out to other companies, right? I don't know if that'll fix anything.
I don't see any good outcome for RIM
at all.
Unfortunately, I don't know what to say.
See, I think they have, if they make the right moves and if they release a phone within the next quarter, which I don't think they're going to do, right? They delayed it again. That BlackBerry 10 operating system. It's once again delayed. Their problem was their roadmap was way too long. They had the 10-year roadmap, and I don't know what prevented them from kind of saying, you know what, guys, we got to speed this up. It was a big problem, and it's very Palmish. Yeah. They might do well if they put out 2 solid phones and a tablet that captivates somebody. And they need to get a really solid PR. They could, anything is possible. If they market this thing and a lot of people buy this, and a lot of people turned off from the iPhone, a lot of people turned off from Android, they might go to this.
I think they need a partner. I think they need someone like Microsoft, who is now partnering with Nokia and thus unavailable to them. But they need someone like that,
But what would you see them doing? Like having like a Samsung BlackBerry phone?
No, I mean, Samsung's not a good partner for them because Samsung already makes Android phones and, some Windows phones as well.
Maybe
they need someone who can focus only on what they're doing. Maybe that means a Dell or HP type company. I don't actually have any solutions for RIM, unfortunately. Like I said, I keep coming back to this notion.
But is it the hardware that's the problem? I mean, let's look at the big problem before we wrap it up. Do we think it's the hardware that's the problem, or the lack of innovation?
Well, it's that their previous key differentiators are no longer key differentiators, and that people are not interested in small screens with physical keyboards anymore, by and large. I know some people are, but the vast majority of customers out there in the world, the people buying phones, consumers, Apple just released their quarterly results. They sold 37 million iPhones in the quarter.
Yeah, I think they hit what was their earnings for the quarter?
$40 cajillion.
Yeah, I think it's like 46.
But, this is the iPhone 4S is visually identical to the phone it's replacing. That design is over 18 months old, and they sold 37 million of them. Mm-hmm. That's why RIM is screwed.
Well, RIM right now, they have 6 phones, right? They have the BlackBerry Bold 990 and 9900 and 9930. Then they have the BlackBerry Torch, which is a 9850 and 9860. This is the branding problem that I've spoken about from day one. Then they have the BlackBerry Torch 9800 and 9810. Then they have the BlackBerry Curve 9350 and 9360. Then they have the flip BlackBerry phone, the Style, and then they have the Pearl.
Yeah.
Get rid of them all.
Yep.
Get rid of all of them.
This is a lot of the advice today. It's consolidate.
Get rid of all of them. Have one phone. I don't know what brand you want to keep. You want to keep the Bold brand for your, QWERTY physical keyboard. That's fine. And have one solid touchscreen device and slowly phase out the keyboard.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't need to put out 6 phones.
Right. Yeah.
Who's a flip phone appealing to? I mean, that's the most baffling part. Who are you appealing to with this device? I don't know. Just useless. Useless.
Yeah.
We did have Verizon, and we had a lot of other ones. So you know what? We could always bring that into the other shows that we do. Maybe next week we could talk a little bit about Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, and Sprint, and what they could possibly do. Maybe what T-Mobile could do to kind of survive the next year, because I don't know what's going to happen with them at this point.
I almost think you need to discuss the wireless carriers as one thing.
Yeah.
These guys need some, because right now, unfortunately, there's no real differentiation other than the companies that will never have true 4G, which, it kind of boils down to, I happen to live here, and this is what happens to be better where I live, thus I will pick.
I have 20 megabits up and down on my 4G.
Yeah.
I'm getting Fios speeds on my 4G, which is unbelievable. You know what? Next week, that's what we'll do. We'll do a show on the wireless providers, and where we see this going, and where we see that industry kind of leading. I want to remind everybody, you could go to our website if you miss any part of this show. We're constantly replaying it at gfqlive.tv, and we also put it on podcast form on the Zune. I'll give Zune credits first. We're on iTunes. We're pretty much everywhere you could imagine to get a podcast. We're on Stitcher, so you could download it on the go and listen on the go. Paul, did that app come out? That the one you sent me? You have an app, right?
My app.
Your app.
For the
iPhone. What?
It was just approved.
Okay.
From the Apple Store.
I don't want to go too much into it, but can I comment on what you had sent me?
I don't remember what I sent you. What did I send you?
The show would be on there.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, the show will be on there.
It will be on there.
One of my lights went out behind me. That's interesting. I think that light that was brighter just burnt out. That makes a lot of sense. So, we're pretty much everywhere you could imagine. I don't know if it's out yet. You know what? I'll check. I'll check while when we wrap up. But also go to Paul's site, winsupersite.com. Let me see what the latest blog is on there. Paul, what did you write about recently?
I've written about all kinds
data
of
storage from the floppy disk to the cloud. Actually, that's a pretty interesting article, and I want to read that.
I'm glad that one's out. I was wondering about that.
Yeah, this is really cool. We've come a long way, actually.
I'll be spending the next months I'm like securely erasing hard disks, and there's a lot of stuff in there.
I just found my zip disks, and I've been going through them.
I ordered a used zip disk player, or what do we call it, drive, so I could access data on some zip disks.
Yeah, and catch Paul every Thursday on the Twit Network for Windows Weekly with Mary Jo Foley. One of my favorite shows. I always say that every week, and I do mean it. That was one of the first podcasts I started listening to. I'm a super fan, Paul. This has been my big plot to get you to work with me,
right?
So I could be closer.
It's a business model.
It is, yeah. We're doing better than what most of these companies are doing at this point. And we'll see you all next week, guys. Have a good night.